The big deal was how they tried to imply that she's not qualified to be the first lady because she posed to Playboy. And if you still believe to this day, with all the technology in the world, if you still believe that super PACs do not communicate with the people they are supporting, I tell you what, you're a moron. You're a moron, and you still believe that with all the technology we have nowadays. That isn't it crazy how people still believe that they don't communicate with each other?
I guarantee, and here's the thing. If these people communicate via iPhones, okay, those text messages are encrypted and nobody will ever see those. So these guys can be texting one another back and forth at all kinds of crazy stuff and nobody will know,
right.
And I guarantee you these super PACs coordinate with the candidates. They're not supposed to, but I guarantee you they do. I mean, Ted Cruz was supposed to file his $1 million loan from Goldman Sachs with the FEC, and he didn't.
Right.
Well, that's now they're even filing that.
Yeah, well, this is and that's exactly it. I was going to talk about that later. How he's going to wait till after the election to file with the FCC to file to answer to the FCC after the election is over, and he's getting investigated for the $500,000 donation that a super PAC made to Carly Fiorina, which we're going to get into in a second. But before we get to that, yep. And then you have Trump. Then the reason why Ted Cruz started blaming Donald Trump, and I think that later on in the show we're gonna show you why we believe that Jeff Rowe was part of this. Jeff Rowe, the manager of the campaign manager of Ted Cruz, why he might have been involved. He took the opportunity to kind of pounce. They've been saying that Ted Cruz and his campaign knew about this story, that it was going to be coming out. They were well prepared for it. And we're going to tell you why later on in the show. But basically, he tried to say that what Donald Trump, by saying when he tweeted about don't make me spill the beans on Heidi Cruz, was about her depression, like everybody pounced on it. And then here you have Ted Cruz coming out and standing, and he has this fake outrage standing up for his wife. It's so transparent. But here you have the spokesman Katrina Pearson. She came out. She says she basically said spilling the beans is quite simple when it comes to Heidi Cruz. She is a Bush operative. She worked for the architect of NAFTA, which has killed millions of jobs in this country. She was a member of the Council of Foreign Relations who, in Senator's own words, called a nest of snakes that seek to undermine national sovereignty. And she's been working for Goldman Sachs, the same global bank that Ted Cruz left off his financial disclosure. Her entire career has been spent working against everything Ted Cruz says that he stands for. That's what Katrina came out and said the next day. She said, Katrina Pearson, which is Donald Trump's spokesperson, she came out and she says that's what spilling the beans means. It didn't mean he wasn't talking about her depression or anything of the sort.
Yeah, absolutely not. And it's funny how what the media does with Trump is that he will say something and they will decide that what he really meant was this other thing, and then they will create that as the new premise, and then spend days or weeks attacking the thing that they decided he meant, not what he actually said.
Right. You're listening,
and they're like, how dare you? I thought, but
no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, I saw people. I mean, I had people all day tweeting me, "How dare Trump attack this woman for her depression?" And I'm like, he's never mentioned her depression.
Yeah, no, he never has.
Yes, he did. Well, no, he hasn't. He never brought it up. He's never said the word.
Never, ever, ever, ever. So you're listening to The Silent Majority here. I'm your host, Chris, and my co-host for the night is none other than Bill Mitchell. And let's go on with what Roger Stone brought up a good point. He said because Ted Cruz also blamed him. He blames everybody but himself. He blamed Roger Stone for leaking the story. Roger Stone responded. He says this story was originated by Marco Rubio's operatives, and he says, "Trust me, if I would have planted this story, you would have known about it. You would have never known about it." He says, and then he also says, "I do think it's odd he doesn't sue. Perhaps he's worried about his ability to survive discovery," which is when you talk about discovery, whenever you go through a lawsuit, you got to show, you got to make everything kind of public as to what went on and all the paperwork. Well, he brings up a good point. Why isn't he suing? Why isn't he suing the National Enquirer?
Right. He doesn't want to go to. He doesn't want to go to court. You know.
Right. Yeah.
One thing we didn't mention about the Lewandowski thing is that the prosecutor that filled out the arrest warrant for Lewandowski and approved that is actually a big Democrat operative, has been a Democrat all their lives, and is involved in the campaign in the state of Florida to elect Hillary Clinton. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just so crazy.
Yep. And you also had, I think it was Christine Powers, who stated earlier also. She said that this story has been juggled around. I mean, she said that it's been reported. I mean, people knew about this for weeks. I mean, at least since January, she's saying that this has been basically a story that the Marco Rubio campaign was holding on to. So to say that Donald Trump had anything to do with it is just I said, this might be something of a greater plan, which we're going to be talking about in about another minute with my next guest, who's going to be coming in about a minute or so, Daniel Lindsay. We're going to be talking about how that kind of all ties in. This whole thing, like you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can always connect them looking back. So that's what we're going to try to do here, connecting the dots with this story. But it makes no sense for Ted Cruz to be blaming Donald Trump unless Jeff Rowe planted the story. So we're going to be talking about that with my next guest. I want to actually welcome him in right now. And his name is Daniel Lindsay. Daniel, how are you? Welcome to the Silent Majority.
Oh, listen, it's great to be on. Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks, Bill. I appreciate you guys bringing me on.
Awesome. Sure. And again, the number to call is 347-338-1775. If you want to get your voice heard, give us a call. So as you see, I don't know, you've been on the line for about 5 minutes, so you've heard what we have been talking about. I also mentioned that here you have Heidi Cruz, who's kind of like disappeared from the radar, and in comes Carly Fiorina, and there was a story, I think it was in the Conservative Treehouse also. Actually, here it is. Here's the article right here. It says Heidi Cruz had planned to hold a fundraiser in Morris County on Wednesday and attend several campaign events across the state of New Jersey. She canceled her appearances on Monday. And then you have an operative, you have an Atwater Envision who says that basically this was basically an old school Republican political operative operation where basically you hide the spouse, you take her from the trail, you block contact, you delete social media, and then you present a female spokesperson as an intercepting agent for the candidate, keeping interceptors with candidates at all time. Deny until the deny is no longer plausible. The interceptor is to deflect attention away from the campaign. And then it says that in phase 2 ends with a re-entry of the spouse to deliver a well-heeled together speech surrounded by the candidate's optics with friends and families. And basically, that's what he says. That's the plan going forward. How do you feel about that?
Well, here's the one thing, Chris, and a lot of this is speculation. I mean, this is, I can speak now. All the Cruz fans are listening to this, and they're going to be going nuts talking about this is all coming out now because Trump's trying to win. In court, there's something called a pattern of behavior. And anytime anybody's going up on trial or anybody's accused of anything, the number one thing they try to do is show that there's a pattern of behavior. Well, this isn't a first instance. There's a pattern for this. And with Ted Cruz, this pattern of behavior goes for years back. You go all the way back into Princeton. And you can pull up the articles, and they're on my Twitter page, and you put them on there. Bill, I've seen you have them on there, even from Princeton. He's had some issues with gambling. He had to borrow $1,800 from his aunt, to pay off his poker debts. This is a guy that went on, and in 2012, I think you guys mentioned earlier, about the $1.3 million from 2 Wall Street banks. Those Wall Street banks happen to be Goldman Sachs and Citibank. Now, why do I bring those up? Well, those two also give money to Hillary Clinton.
Right.
So there's a tie right there that everybody knows about. Mm-hmm. Now, that $1.3 million that Ted Cruz conveniently says that he didn't know about, and this is the brilliant Ted Cruz now. This is all in retrospect. You've got to understand this guy's brilliant. So he forgot to file that. But the fact of the matter is, any candidate, you cannot have an unsecured signature loan go into your campaigns. That is a FEC violation. You guys were right when you said March 6th was a deadline that the FEC is trying to get at him right now. Mm-hmm. That deadline is passed. He's not going to make that deadline. He has no intention of making it. So now, moving on up to March 23rd, you brought up the National Enquirer. Everybody's been talking about that. Well, one of the allegations was for a lady called Sarah Flores. Everybody's, brought her name up with Carly Fiorina. Mm-hmm. Now, July 31st of 2015, that's when the $500,000 Super PAC donation from Cruz to Carly Fiorina Super PAC occurred. A couple months after that March incident. So what we have, and then I think a caller, you had on the other day, talked about what he's done with Iowa. That wasn't his fault. He wasn't accountable for that. He didn't know. Mm-hmm. He didn't. So what the whole point with this is, and all for the Cruz fans and anybody that's listening for Cruz, I don't want to get into speculation. I don't have to do that. I'm just doing the documented things going all the way back from Princeton to right now to make one point. Mm-hmm. If this comes out to be true, it's not a shock. It's a pattern of behavior. Right. And the next thing they're going to say, and they're going to scream at you, Chris, and they're going to say, are you saying that Trump is, look what Trump's done, look what Trump. Here's the difference. The difference is Trump is not a king of principle. He's not running his campaign on being the pastor for America. Right. That is a very dangerous platform to try to run. And that's what Trump chose. Trump didn't choose that. Trump chose America first.
Yeah, you're breaking up, pal, a little bit there. I don't know if you can stop moving around. You're breaking up. But you bring up a good point about the super PACs and how Carly got basically her this is even before she was she was at about 0%, and she was given 500K. Her super PAC was given 500K from the Ted Cruz super PAC, and which leads me.
There's never been an explanation for that.
Yeah, no, and it hasn't. Right, Bill. You listen to the Silent Majority. My co-host tonight is Bill Mitchell, and on the Rebooting Liberty hotline, I have Daniel Lindsay. The number to call is 347-338-1775. So this leads me to my next question is. Here you have a $500,000, basically, it wasn't a loan, it was a grant, basically to Carly Fiorina's super PAC, way in advance of this quote unquote sex scandal allegation. In comes the story that was in the Gateway Pundit about they interviewed a quote unquote operative, and he gave a quote unquote his explanation as to why this came out the way it did. Did you read that article?
Yeah, I read it, but actually you set it up. But I read the article, and it goes down to the same facts that I was talking about before. There's the points that I brought out were just stated facts. There are speculation into it, and I didn't want to get because I didn't want to give Cruz people say, well, that hasn't been proven yet. It's just like the campaign manager. You talked about the point of the story about on Trump's wife. Right. Now, there's many articles. You brought up a good point that's saying this guy did it, and his hands are all over it. But until that's proven, you're going to have a lot of people out there saying, well, now that's his word against, theirs. So you don't need to use speculation.
Well, this is the problem. This is the problem. And I mentioned it in my opening. I said, a lot of times you have these talk show hosts say, anytime you have a question, and you're not allowed to speculate because you look like you're wearing a tinfoil cap, and that's the way they guilt you. That's like their way of saying you're racist. That's the way of, them trying to knock your theory down. But I truly believe if you read this article, this operative that was interviewed on the Gateway Pundit, it explains how basically here you have Glenn Beck. What was the word that they used? It was like they were trying to oversell. He was trying to oversell the scandal, so because he knows more than probably any of us if the scandal was real. Bill, did you read the article, Bill?
Yeah, I read the article. The whole point is that creating a psychological